You are now listening to Femme Regard Podcast with Tessa Markle
and Carolina Alvarez.
So welcome back, Femme Fam. Thank you guys always for listening. We have another fantastic guest for you. By the way, I just realized I think I say those exact words every time. Like, we got to start mixing it up in this intro.
Girl, accents might have to come back out.
Oh, I don't know about that. Accents, those were rough. We tried it for a while.
We had a moment.
But, you know, it's all true. We're very grateful for all of you guys for listening all the time. And we are always excited. Like, we have the best guests. I'm so glad that we've gotten such awesome people on this show.
Yes.
And today we have Vida Ghaffari. She is an actress, producer, voiceover. Like, she's done a lot of things in the biz and she's been doing it for a while. So we are really excited to have her on today and to chat about how she got started, how she got to where she is, and how she keeps going. So thank you, Vida, for being on today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on this show. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we were just talking, listeners, before we started recording about supporting, you know, women in the industry. Like, all three of us, that's something that's very important to us. And so, you know, any woman, I should say, specifically, especially, that's succeeding in the business, like, it's just so inspirational. So if you want to let us know how you got started to begin with.
You know, I'm from the DC area and it's a very political town, and not to get political, but we're in very political times. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a one pony show being politics. So I was a journalist, actually. And how I got my start was, it actually led to voiceover, oddly enough. So I'm of Persian descent, but I was working for some TV stations where it was non-religious, non-political, and I was their entertainment correspondent. And they would send me to events, and one of the guys in the control room was like, you know, you've got a great voice. I'll just record your voice, and you can do the promos and, you know, the voiceover. And I always joke, because it's so low budget. It's not like how it is for American media. I would do the work in English and Farsi. I would do the voiceovers, but I would get like half the money of what, you know, if it was like a SAG or after job, I don't think it would have been the same. But yeah. I remember he was a really nice guy, and he recorded my voice. He was also a sound engineer, and I guess he had a friend that had a studio, and he would refer me to people. It's never like that, I think, in this industry, at least for me. I've always had to, you know, try so hard, and, you know, you have all these auditions and whatever, but I guess back in the day, I think it was a very level playing field, because technology isn't where it's at now. So, you know, now everybody can do voiceover, which in a way is great, but then you're competing with people from Nebraska or, you know, Wyoming or wherever in the country who want to do stuff just to do stuff. So I ended up getting a lot of voiceover jobs, narration, industrials, promos, and I always loved acting, and I always loved performing, and I minored in theater and journalism at the University of Maryland. And it was very interesting to me, because LA, as you know, is a very big town, but it's very small in some respects. And the stage that I performed improv in, the Black Box Theater, was built by this guy named Carl Warren, who is the head of the AFI, has a SAG-AFTRA conservatory. And I got to know him, and I took classes there, and then that, you know, led to acting. And it's just been a very intriguing journey. So that's basically where it got started. But yeah, I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had, and conveying any kind of knowledge that I can to others.
I think that's interesting that you started in voiceover and then went to like on-camera acting and stuff, because it seems like it's always the other way around. You know, you have on-camera actors that are like, oh, I'll try voiceover. So that's interesting. I like that. And then you also produce too. Is that correct? Or you
I produce a little bit here and there. I think in the indie world, that's just, you know, something that people pitch in. You know, you have to wear different hats, and I've actually enjoyed it. So yeah, that's been quite a journey as well. You really learn a lot from different angles. As I'm sure you guys can attest, you ladies can attest, you really learn a lot of different things in production. So that's been nice as well.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on the show, is, you know, with indie filmmaking, like, you've got to learn to wear all the hats, and, you know, that doesn't mean you have to master them all, but you become very familiar with all different sides of production.
Totally.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, I think it benefits you too, like to know all of those different sides, because then, you know, if you understand what a director needs, then as an actor, you can provide it, and, you know, it all intermarries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that. Yeah, it's just like it's awesome that like our guests are such multi hyphenates. Like we're finding
Mhm.
that that is a really common thing, especially amongst those who have a long career. And would love to hear how you feel like you've been able to stick with it so long and beat the competition. And do you feel like being a multi hyphenate is kind of what helped you pivot into other roles, or have like longevity in this game, if you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think there is this misconception that there's always so much lack in our industry.
Mhm.
And I think when you do different things, there's always something to do. You know, there's always like a voiceover audition to record, or there's always, you know, a Zoom reading to do nowadays. You know, that's basically what it's become. So there's always something to do. And I think that's very important, is to keep oneself active, because then you end up like a schoolgirl by the, you know, the emails or the phone, waiting for that call for that job that in these times, you know, may or may not happen or may get pushed back. So a lot of the stuff that I've been cast in, you know, has been obviously pushed back, but there's always something to do, which is quite nice. And I think, as rough as it is, it kind of fosters a different kind of creativity that many of us never assumed we had,
Mhm.
particularly doing Zoom auditions. Or, you know, I used to go, I mean, I feel so glamorous now. I used to go to this place nearby for big voiceover auditions. Now I do those things at home. So, you
Mhm.
know, the small stuff I would do at home, but it's very, you know, challenging, you know, making a makeshift soundproof area, you know, on the fly, or, you know, it's, but in a good way. So I think it kind of, by the time we get to productions or doing what we
Mhm.
do, it's like a whole different level. Like it's like you've
Yeah.
surpassed all that you've had to surpass. You've endured, you know, you've toiled all that you can toil. So it kind of makes it kind of easier. So by the time you get to a set, if you
Mhm.
do get to a set, it's a lot less, um, you know, one is a lot less in their own way, because you've had to deal with so much to get to that point.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it's, these are, you know, strange and unusual times we're in, but I marvel at the uh, ingenuity and I guess, you know, the will that people have, not to be dramatic about it, but seeing how people do so much
Yeah.
in these times is really incredible to me. So it's just, I feel like it's, without being cheesy, it's like the power of the human spirit to power on. I mean, there was a time in March where people really, I mean, people that I knew of really weren't doing much of anything, and it was kind of, you know,
Mhm.
waiting around. But now it seems like, you know, people are learning to deal with this and do the things they want to do.
That's so powerful, Vida. Like, thank you for sharing some positive light, because it's easy to feel like, you know, or it's easy to feel like nothing is happening, that we are like at a weird standstill, which, yes, like you said, there's still like pushback happening, and like, you know, everyone's saying that, yeah, production's kind of paused here. And, you know, you have mom back home telling you nothing's happening and get a real job. And so I know, I do believe that there, you know, there is things still happening and can happen and will continue. We have to do things differently now. So I really appreciate your, you know, positive spirit there. I think we can all
Oh, thank
benefit
you.
through that. And to reel it back, I don't want to take up our time too much on this, but for those voiceover actors that are maybe tuning in, what are some elements to making like a good soundproofing type in-home studio? Is there like something special that you use that does a good job?
You know, I knew some engineers, like not just from this station, just I think living in Los Angeles, and one of them was moving, and God, I guess I was lucky enough to come across it before he hit Craigslist. I bought a bunch of his soundproof. It's like the egg crate thing,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
foam, exactly the
Yeah.
foam, and I just wrap that around my closet. I have a friend who's a very skilled French voiceover actress. She does all the French dubbing. And at first I was like, is this going to work for me? And then I realized she was gracious enough to let me record an audition with her. She also, I guess, runs sessions. And I was like, wait a second, this fancy French lady who does all the voiceover for everything you can imagine in French, like the E channel, she uses a closet. Why can't I use my closet?
Yeah.
So I just basically padded my closet and, put blankets in there. And it's quite nice. And I'm very simple. I guess I should use the fancy ones, but I use Sound Studio. I'm very low tech. And someone even set me up with, what's the really good one? Is it Pro Tools?
That's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even use it. Like I have it, but I don't even use it. I like my Sound Studio. That's what I learned it on. That's what I keep doing it. It's my cute little Sound Studio. I don't even use GarageBand. So I keep it old school.
I mean, whatever works, clearly that's working for you. And actually, I think that's good to hear for a lot of people that, don't want to like pay for editing software or whatever. That stuff works just as well.
Or to get that, there's a crazy booth. And I was thinking about getting the booth, but I don't have the space. Mm-hmm. Southern California, I mean, it's not known for basements. Where would I stick this big cavernous booth? And it costs a fortune. And it's very claustrophobic. Mm-hmm. So, I've been to that booth before for sessions and auditions, which is fine, but, it seems a bit much for me to record like a couple of lines here and there, for a gig in that booth. And it's, it's very stagnant air and it's just tiny. I mean, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. This coffin like square,
the coffin. That's a great way.
Yeah. And I mean, who wants that thing in their house? It costs a fortune. So, and I heard that it's not as great as people think it is. I think sometimes just using what you have with the foam and and the blankets is fine for me personally. I mean, I don't know if I could record an audiobook in there, but I do what I need to do in there. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do a little bit of voiceover as well. And I live in a studio. So even my closet isn't big enough to record in. But I mean, I just made, out of a cardboard box and some of that foam, like a soundproofing box. And it's, sure, if there's a loud car outside or a plane, I have to wait for that to pass because it's not that soundproof, but as long as it's quiet around, like it gets the job done and the quality is really pretty good in the end. So use what you have.
Engineer your own box because a lot of those companies make them for like a couple hundred and you probably made a better one. So there you go.
Well, that's cool to hear too. Like you can either purchase something like that that's like so like not going to take up such big space in your room, or you can just do it makeshift style. Maybe Tessa and I will have to do a little YouTube on that. How about that? Some voiceover boxes, ADR boxes, like as filmmakers we might need to use those voiceover ADR type skills, and we got to be inventive. So I love that, you're a working professional in that field and you've just made it work with your own stuff at home. That's amazing. Like, we love hearing that. Like gold, that's gold. Cause you're spending time and money and like, that's what we're about. We need to be.
Yeah. Especially I think in these times. And I see a lot of people that have, they pad the wall.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's for me yet, but I mean, like I said, seeing that French lady have that, and she does the E channel. I think she's the National Geographic. So if she has it in her closet, good enough for her. It's good enough for me and, my little blue mic that I use. So.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that like, they make their full living from voiceover and they just record out of their closet most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sure, there's the people that are, I don't know, they, the creme de la creme of voiceover. They do like the spots for ABC and, they live in Bel Air and they're very nice people, but it's like it's the size of most people's dream homes is a voiceover studio and they have an engineer. And I think my point is if you may us all, be wildly successful, but I think it's, was it Kanye who said it or was it P. Diddy? More money, more problems. Maybe it was Beyonce's husband. But I think, he always has to have that engineer. And, it's a lot of work to always have that engineer. What if he gets a job on the fly? I'm sure he could do something himself, but it's nice to have that engineer. So.
I mean, it's kind of like you said earlier about like getting out of your own way, if you're able to do the things yourself and you're able to understand how things work yourself, you're going to be able to do a lot more things because
Yeah, exactly. Or I don't mean to quote Jay-Z, but I mean, it would be nice, but still, I think it's great. It's because again, like in the situation that we're all in, we're often doing things on the fly. So
yeah.
I just to pimp out our dear friend Mike at the Network Studios, where we used to do our podcast recordings, and now only limit that because of COVID. But he has an amazing voiceover booth that is the Up Coffin. It is amazing. It looks amazing. So he has all the high tech. So for anyone in the greater Los Angeles area who doesn't have the space in their closet, like I sure don't. I have like 2 suitcases full of clothes that I still don't know what to do with. But yeah, that need that a professional engineer to be on there. His setup is dope. It's the best. It's amazing. So I just want to shout him out because, there's sometimes we just can't make it work at home. If it's constant noise too, and it's just loud roommates, we've all been there. So,
and you want to focus on the job, and he edits it for you as well, I would assume. Yeah. So that's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're in the booth, so you're safe from COVID. So there you go.
Exactly.
Are you a podcaster like us? Vlogger? Interview conductor? Do you need a VO booth or ADR? Remote audio video professional recording?
Ooh, Tessa, spilled the tea.
Well, the Network Studios in Culver City is a fully functional recording oasis with multiple rooms made to cater specifically to audio podcasts, video interviews, and voiceover, plus an experienced sound engineer with the ability to edit and master. All your needs will be covered.
Audio engineer extraordinaire Mike Casentini has worked with several podcast heavy hitters and got us started from the ground up. He's the reason we sound so good. Plus, all of our in-studio guests have been very impressed.
To find out more, visit www.thenetworkstudios.com and book your next recording session. COVID compliant and open for business.
I'd love to go back to what you had said earlier about that there's always something to do in this town and in this industry, because I was having this conversation with a new friend that I met the other day, actually. I told him I was an actor and he said, "Oh, is that hard? Really, is it a hard profession?" And I was like, well, yes and no. It's hard to make a real living with acting because you've got to be pretty successful at it, but it's not hard to get work. You can always be doing something, whether it's something you're creating, that your friends are creating, that you audition for. There's so much, like you said, to do. And it really helps you prepare for when you are at that level that you're, making your living with acting and everything. So yeah, I think that was really great that you had mentioned that earlier. I agree.
Yeah, totally. That. And I think, unfortunately, fortunately we have social media, but I always think the worst thing for actors is the comparison syndrome, or for anybody, everything is so illuminated these days with social media. So a person can fall down the rabbit hole of, oh, woe is me, or oh this or oh that, but there's so much out there that a person can do with, the proliferation of Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, everything. There's just so many opportunities, and people can make their own opportunities. You can make a web series, and that's how a lot of people get into SAG, at least for now. I don't know what the rules are during all this, but there's a lot more opportunities now than there were, 5 years ago or 3 years ago, if you kind of look at it from a different perspective. So, and the indie film world is, during all this is really blossoming. So, I guess they don't have the restrictions of, the studios or what have you. So that's been very interesting to see as well.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have if you could just say one kind of little thing of inspiration to people about, the longevity in this career and how to keep yourself motivated, besides just longevity in the sense of continuing to get jobs, but longevity in continuing to keep yourself going, all of that, if you could speak to that a little bit.
Right. Well, I think for me, given my cultural background, I would have representation that would always send me out for those Middle Eastern women roles. And my beef with those roles were, in those cultures, women are not known for talking. And oftentimes I get these great monologues, and I'd come in and I'd do the monologue, and it would be like, my story, as a woman in a headscarf. And it would either be, it's either comedy or it's either drama. And oftentimes those roles were often written by women, or, if they were men, it was like younger men. I hate to use the term woke, but woke,
Yeah.
if you will. So oftentimes, by the time that I would do the lines, it kind of changed. And then it would get less. And then it would get less. And I was really perturbed by this. And it wasn't until, and I'm going to give a shout out to my amazing representation, Joe Williamson. And he's like, you could play anybody. And I was like, what? And he's like, you could play anybody. I don't know why you lock yourself into this stuff. It's like you're torturing yourself over and over again. You go out for these parts, you memorize the lines in different accents and different languages. I mean, I've had to pick up dialects, and, it's not like people just speak straight Farsi. There's, Afghani dialects, there's Uzbeki dialects, there's all these different dialects. So I would go through all this stuff, and I would think of this woman's journey if she was from such and such place in such and such country. And then I thought to myself, this guy's right. So many times my lines would get cut, the roles would get cut, because in as amazing as this culture is, it's so much diversity, and, times have changed so much with these roles that I've played. There's still these women just don't talk kind of thing. Yeah. So everything would be diminished, which is kind of a shame. But then I realized when I'm playing different people, and I guess I feel very lucky because I have friends that are Middle Eastern actors, that's all they get. They're wildly successful, but that's basically all they get. And they often, unless they're men, often lose the lines. Or it's like, I always liken it to when one is starting out as an actor, and I'm sure you can attest to this, you're always like the girlfriend or like the friend of somebody. You're not the girl, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what playing the wife or the, village lady or all that was. So as I started working in different films, like, I had a very interesting turning point getting this great manager, Joe, who put me in touch with you wonderful ladies. And he's like, why don't you just try out for other stuff? Why are you limiting yourself? You have to diversify. And I remember I was cast in this incredible film with much help from Joe Williamson. It's called Eternal Code. He really pitched me hard on that. It's a Harley Wallen film. I worked with incredible people that I've admired most of my life. Richard Tyson, from Kindergarten Cop, and just so many amazing movies. Billy Worth from The Lost Boys, and just amazing cast. Mel Novak from Bruce Lee's Game of Death, who's a wonderful, amazing actor, has really, motivated me. But I got to play a scientist, and my dad was a well-known scientist, and in Persian culture, scientists are like Michael Jordan. So it ended up all over the Middle Eastern media. It was incredible. This film was featured twice in the Trades Variety, and that gave me a much needed boost. Yeah. I think when you're cast in something like that, it opens all sorts of doors. And then because I played a scientist, my dad was a scientist, like that led to more scientist roles. So I went from, and there's no shame in the Middle Eastern roles, but to play a scientist and to be an intellectual woman. And it wasn't like, I had an interesting name, Nikita. So it's not like I was based on my ethnicity, so I was just a scientist. It was a compelling role. She was a very smart woman. It's like you look at it from different angles as opposed to, which is great. Don't get me wrong. The headscarf roles are great, but I feel like it's very one-dimensional. And towards the end, I always knew that the lines would get cut or something would happen or she'd be, vilified in some such way or not. So that led to other scientist roles, which is leading to roles like attorney, prosecutor, that kind of stuff. So after that, I played a scientist in a number of films, most of them by this amazing young filmmaker, Dustin Ferguson. This guy is probably in his mid-30s, and he's made 70. Incredible. So it was great working with him as well, and some career mom in a film called Miranda Vale, which is coming out soon. And I would have never expected. I was an American mom. I was a career woman. I was, too busy in my own world of, being a successful woman to care about my daughter. Whereas I played the roles where I cared so much, which is great, but it's nice to diversify. And I think that's my thing. I think a person shouldn't be limited. And unfortunately, in this industry, when you have an agent that sees you can speak in certain language fluently, they're going to submit you for those roles. And I think the ethnically diverse thing, you see it a lot now in breakdowns, and I see ambiguous. I thought in the beginning, oh, that's strange. But I think a person can kind of work to use that to their advantage now, as opposed to being caged in a box of that, which, like I said, it's great for some people. I have friends that are great villains. They live on the high hog, but I think, they always want to be the hero or the heroine. And I think we all have different paths. And I kind of like this diversification. For me personally, it's been quite nice to be, an intellectual. And some of the lines that I memorize, I'm like, wow, this is incredible for me. You got to get out of the staleness of it, I think. And I think towards the end of it, I would always joke in the trunk of my car, I had like a wide array of headscarves and various accoutrements. And I think I was just getting lost in the shuffle of that. It's very easy to get lost in the shuffle of that. And, people say, would you take those roles? I think if it was a compelling enough role, and if it was like I don't know, like it would have to be like an extraordinary Middle Eastern woman, because otherwise it's, I hate to say it, they make a lot of those parts very farcical. And there's a lot of strong women. I mean, look at people like Malala. Why can't they have characters like that? Or like the lady that was a prime minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto. Like, how come there's they need more roles like her? Like that would be great. So, I guess it is what it is. But yeah, I think that really was like a watershed moment for me. And I knew I was on the right path when it was in Variety twice. And like I said, I wish every person in this industry can get in the trades, because that makes a world of difference. People start reaching out to you. It's just a whole different ball game. So that really helped.
Nice. I've had this conversation before with people too. It's like everything's about ethnicity right now, right? Like everyone wants to make things culturally diverse, but it's like people are trying, but they're not quite getting the concept of what diversity really means, because it's like you're putting in those stereotypical, ethnic characters. And we don't just want to see more colors of skin. Like, we want to see people of different cultures being people, and not just being, the token whatever. Like you said, being a scientist that was Middle Eastern, that's an actual person role. Like, we need more of that with the diversity.
She wasn't even Middle Eastern. It wasn't even defined what this woman was. It was all about the science, right? So I think that was really cool. And I think part of it is we're getting a lot of younger filmmakers. Like Dustin is younger. I think I hate to say it's like a global world, but Harley Wallen, that I worked with on Eternal Code, the filmmaker and actor, he's amazing. He's of Swedish descent. So, I mean, I think it's people are from different backgrounds now. The industry's changing. There's younger people. It's like a different generation of people. And you're working with these kinds of people. They don't really, I think a lot of these people, they don't see ethnicity. They see the person, which is so interesting to me. They're younger people. So therefore, and it's the indie film world. So they're not governed by a whole studio system. But I think even at that level, things are changing. So, it is what it is. But I'm very excited to be working with them in the future. There's a number of projects I'm going to be working with Dustin. I was just cast in another Harley Wallen film, Beneath Us All, which is an incredible film. It stars Sean Whalen from, he's been in so many films. The People Under the Stairs. Also, we have, legendary actor John Savage from The Deer Hunter. So just incredible actors, and it's based on a true story. That also hit the trades. I'm also starring in a Jimmy Drain film. He's a up and coming talent. It's called Realm of Shadows. I'm going to be playing the mysterious and alluring Cassandra, and that's got a great cast. That has Tony Todd from the Candyman franchise. It's got great actors, Vernon Wells, who's Blade Runner 2, once again, Mel Novak. So that's an incredible cast of people. And, I've always wanted to work with Tony Todd. So, and it's great to play a lady named Cassandra. So, it's wonderful. Whereas in the past, it was so focused on ethnicity. These younger filmmakers, I can't remember My Name in Miranda Vale, but it was a very generic American name. So that was a great experience as well. So yeah, it's just great to, work in these films. And I remember I was in my first film that went 3D was Moon of the Blood Beast, another Dustin Ferguson film. And that just was released on 3D. Yeah. And I play a dispatcher named Noel Johnson. So there's no, and I'm like, God, this is like so much less work for me because I don't have to work on an accent. I don't have to work on some refugee story where I'm just like suffering and I'm escaping. That's a whole into of itself. So I played like a lovelorn dispatcher, and so that was wonderful. I never thought I'd play somebody called Noel Johnson, so does it get more American than Johnson? So that was quite nice, so, because usually I'll get some name that it sounds like it could be from somewhere, so that was quite nice. And following these kinds of movies is so astounding to me. The horror community is so supportive, and believe it or not, there's to add to the positivity. I've some of the most interesting roles I've played were in horror films, and the women are given a lot of, there's of course the woman running through the woods and all that, but I think lately it's evolved, and I feel like a lot of women are like, like the plucky dispatcher I played that was, relentlessly after this beast. Normally she'd be a stock character, but she was really into finding, this beast that's killing people. So, the scientist who's not just a scientist, or, it's interesting to play these roles that are, and horror, there's so many different layers. I feel like the
really go
woman is really the final girl.
Yeah,
it's really evolved, as opposed to screaming in the woods. I'm sure there's screaming in the woods, but it's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
Well, I'm excited for these movies of yours to come out. So please keep us updated on all of those. And then also let our listeners know where they can find your work. You've mentioned a few of the films, but if you have a website or social media, anything like that our listeners can follow your journey.
Sure. Moon of the Blood Beast 3D is available, I guess, on DVD or whatever that 3D movies are on. And also Eternal Code is available on all platforms and DVD as well. And you can find me at Vida Ghaffari, VIDAGHAFF like Frank, ARI on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I haven't mastered TikTok yet, but I'd like to.
Neither have we.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll all have to master TikTok. That's our goal for 2021. I'm on those platforms, and I just want to thank you ladies and your viewers so much. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. This was a great talk. I'm glad that we got to meet you. I don't know, listeners, I don't think I mentioned Joe, that Vida was talking about her representation, reached out to us and, pitched Vida, and we were super excited to have her on the show. So it was another one of those great things that we might not have known about her otherwise, so we just love that this podcast brings us together with these guests.
Absolutely. And someone like you, Vida, who is such a positive light right now in a trying time. And I love that, touching on the pushing the boundaries, especially for diverse characters. I can really resonate to that, and I'll have to share it on the podcast at another time because we're running out of time today. But I love that. I think you just need to push the envelope, and that's your job as the actor or the artist, and to either create or speak up and be like, hey, I see myself in these roles too, So I love that. That's so encouraging. And I hope our listeners I know they've learned a bit more today about all those things. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
The tea.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Vida, and thank you, listeners. And we will see you all next time. Thanks for listening to Femme Regard podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in next time for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals over tea.
We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. If you leave us a great comment, we might give you a shout out on the show. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.